Welcome back. Hey, you're on the right path, or we hope you are. We're pointing you in that direction. Welcome back to Right Path to Retirement, the podcast hosted by Jimmy Lynn, the president, founder, and financial advisor at Right Path to Retirement, just outside of Las Vegas there. Hit them up for that complimentary consultation. They do seminars, live events as well at rightpathtoretirement.com, rightpathtoretirement.com, or 702-805-7000. I'm your co-host, Doug Turnbull, and proud to be joined by Jimmy Lynn there as we ramp up for the holidays. Jimmy, I know some people are getting their things in order so they can skate a little bit for the last 6 weeks of the year, and we're dropping this right before Thanksgiving. So I've got to hear, Jimmy, first off, A, if you're having a good day today, I hope so. And B, what are we looking forward to on Turkey Day?
Yeah, Doug. Hey, appreciate you being here again. No, I'm having a great day. You know, we've talked about this past, but fall is my favorite part of the year in Las Vegas. And, you know, with the holiday season coming up, it's wonderful. Thanksgiving in the Lynn household is actually pretty easy because we don't have to host Thanksgiving. We host Christmas, which is an event. But for Thanksgiving, we actually go to my in-laws, and they have a lot of people. I mean, my brother-in-law has a pretty large home, and we probably have like 60 or 75 people going there. Wow. Cousins and aunts and uncles that come in from out of town. And we have a lot of people in Las Vegas as well. So it's really nice because we kind of do it lazy in the Lynn household. It's a potluck. And I'm embarrassed to say we actually just go to Lucille's. It's a local. I don't know if you guys have that in Atlanta. You guys probably have Real Barbecue in Atlanta, but we have that franchise, Lucille's, and we go there and pick up a couple of trays of mac and cheese and bring it, and then we get to enjoy everyone else's hard work. But it's nice. It's easy because we know Christmas is right around the corner, and that's our Super Bowl at our house. So we got to kind of prepare for that. But you know what I will tell you, and I don't know how much you know about this, is I've had a couple of conversations recently with a few of my clients about what they're doing for Thanksgiving. And a lot of them are smoking turkeys.
Oh, yeah.
Have you done that before?
No, I mean, I'm not a great cook, and I don't eat a ton of meat. I don't really cook turkey in my house. But I was just speaking to a chef the other day who does that has smoked ones and baked ones at the same time. It's all over the place. So yeah, that and the deep fried is a big trend over the last 20 years or so.
Right. The deep fries, that's what we usually have. But apparently smoking a turkey is supposed to be amazing. And I have a smoker at home. I just don't use it enough. So that might be my little experiment this year. I'll let you know if I do that. But I'm interested in kind of seeing how something like that would turn out.
If you smoke it for Thanksgiving and they're relying on you for the mac and cheese, you better show up with at least one tray of mac. All right.
Yeah, no. The mac and cheese is a go because I know I can't screw up, restaurant purchased mac and cheese. That won't be screwed up. So that's a go. And then I may show up with a little bit of smoked turkey too.
All right. Well, I'll have to hook you up with out of Houston, Texas, retirement chef Brian Butler, because we talked in our episode recently all about smoking turkeys. Okay, so I might have to get you lined up with him there, and y'all can share both financial and turkey advice. Well, in our previous episodes, you mentioned what we talked about in the past. Most recently, we discussed both the ins and outs of estate planning. I think that's a big deal, and also RMDs. But really, those are things that you potentially are encountering the results of anyway later in retirement. But then there's that question of if I can retire and do I have enough money to retire? And Jimmy, I just did a Google search right before we started the show. How much does it take to retire? And there is one, again, this is all AI generated stuff. I didn't even read an article. One rule of thumb is plan for 80% of your current annual salary to be able to peel out of retirement. Then there's that whole 4% rule. You're trying to deplete 4% of your retirement over and over again to make your retirement nest egg last 30 years. I'm sure there's all sorts of rules of thumb and people try to make it one size fits all, but can you walk us through it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's $1 million question that people are always asking. And we kind of did things out of order. You're right, because, we talk about RMDs and taxes and estate planning, but it really at the very base level, retirement planning is starting out with how much do you need? And if you did any of those Google searches, you probably found, oftentimes that generic number is $1 million. Everybody wants $1 million in their retirement account, and then they'll feel safe and secure. But that's a fallacy because, for some people, they may be shooting for this $1 million goal that they don't even need. So they're working additional years for something that if they really sat down and broke down the numbers, they may not need nearly that much. And there are other people that $1 million isn't nearly enough because of the lifestyle that they live. So using generic numbers isn't the best strategy in order to really nail down your retirement, because, personal finance is, as they say, it's all personal, right? And I think the starting point is really at the very basic level, understanding what your baseline expenses are going to be in retirement. And like I said, everyone's situation is different. That's why the amount of assets that you need are going to be different. Some people are going to have a paid off home. Some people are going to be living in a home where they still have like $700,000 on their mortgage. So obviously those situations are going to be completely different. Others have pensions that they can rely on, while, other people may be solely relying on their retirement accounts to generate income off of that. So you kind of mentioned things like the 4% rule, and we'll touch on a lot of those things. But at the base level, figuring out exactly what your budget is going to be in retirement as far as just your baseline expenses, food and shelter. How do I have food and shelter and feel safe and secure? That generally is going to be your starting point.
Yeah, we start with food and shelter, but I know people want to take at least some trips, or as they get older, they're going to have some leaky and breaky parts, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of things people don't consider when they go to you at rightpathretirement.com and start walking through that conversation.
And 100%, we encourage people to do those things, like take those trips and have those new hobbies and experiences in their life, because that's what they've worked so hard for. But so after you figured out what those baseline expenses are going to be, then you're going to want to know, what are the different things I'm going to be spending money on as I go through the different phases of retirement. So there's something called the retirement smile. It's almost the path that retirement spending takes. And so the first part of retirement, you're going to probably be spending more money because those are what's called the go-go years, right? You just retired, you're still relatively young, and you're able to take those trips that you want to take. Cruises are incredibly popular right now. Some people want to take road trips around this beautiful country of ours. So those are going to be the go-go years, and those could last, anywhere between 5 to 10 years after retirement. That's where a lot of your spending is going to happen. But at some point,
the go-go years, yeah,
the go-go years
slows down, yeah,
right. And at some point, like we say, I don't know if you saw the Mike Tyson fight, but there's that saying, "Father Time never loses," right? Undefeated. Yeah. So after those go-go years, inevitably we have those slow-go years. Right. We're not taking as many trips, so we're not spending as much money. So that's where the retirement smile comes into play. You first spend a lot of money, then you're spending a little bit of money. But then as you get older, you start having those health issues. Maybe you need some long-term care. So then you're spending more money again. So that's where that retirement smile comes into play. And those no-go years where you're really not doing any more traveling, but now those healthcare expenses are coming into play. Those are the different phases. And so you want to make sure that you account for all those different areas. The way we look at it, as a lot of those baseline food and shelter, that's where you want to make sure you have enough fixed income sources, right? So Social Security. Social Security is the most incredible pension this country has. And so that is going to be typically most Americans' first source of fixed income that they can rely on. Ideally, that covers a lot of your baseline expenses. But then some Americans are blessed with pensions. So you got a pension from a company. Now, as you know, Doug, and doing this for a while now, that pensions are not as common as they used to be, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think it used to be like 80% of the population had pensions. Now I think it's definitely less than 20% of the population have a company pension. But if you're fortunate enough to have that company pension, that is going to be part of, will probably cover most of your baseline expenses. And then you look at things like annuities where you want to create your own personal pension. You can do that through an annuity. And then if you have another source like rental income, for example, you take all these different fixed income sources and you want to hope that that covers most of your baseline expenses and ideally some of those experiences too, right? So those vacations, hopefully those fixed income sources can cover some of those. And then you look at those investments that you've worked so hard for. So those 401ks and TSPs, and that's where we have the 4% rule that you had alluded to. That's kind of a rule of thumb, something that has been around for a while. We use that as a starting point, but essentially what that is, Doug, is you could should be able to safely withdraw 4% of your assets every single year. And no matter what the market does, history says that you won't run out of money taking 4% out of those accounts. So if you have $1 million, you could safely take $40,000 every year out of your accounts. And again, in all market conditions through the history of time, you should not run out of money. Now, there's some question about how valid that is, but that's a good starting point.
Yeah. Emphasis on should not, may not.
Exactly. Now, we don't like to
market.
We don't like to base our entire retirement plans on what should happen or what could happen. We really like to kind of be more definitive. We have a lot more flexibility with our clients. What we do utilize is kind of look at the 4% rule, but we put in place what's called guardrails. So if the market is performing really well, we would encourage our clients to maybe take 5 or 6% out of their investable assets, because now you're getting that growth out of your accounts. But if the market if we start getting into a bear market and we see some downturn in our investments, we may tighten up a little bit, but that may be going from 4% to 3%. But by having these guardrails in place, it's kind of like when you go bowling and you're not too good at it as a kid, right? You have those guardrails that'll keep your ball from out of the gutter. We're trying to keep your retirement from going into the gutter by having these guardrails in place, increasing your payments when the market's doing well, and maybe reducing it minimally in order to make sure that you're still safe. And so those are some of the concepts that we utilize. In order to answer the question, it's kind of a long-winded approach to saying, how much do you need in retirement? Well, it takes a strategy, right? Starts with that baseline of how much do you need for your food and shelter, determining how much extra do I need for those go-go years, slow-go years, and then those no-go years, and then figuring out from those accounts that I've saved for the last 30 or 40 years, how do I get the most out of those accounts? And that's what I would say is a starting point to figuring out how much you need. And those are a lot of things that we talk about in those meetings with our clients and with those prospects, is figuring out what exactly do they want their life to look like in retirement, and what are they starting with. Right.
And yeah, exactly. What are they starting with? A lot of people don't realize what they're starting with. I've heard about those abandoned or forgotten about 401ks, for instance. So if this is creating a little bit of tension with someone, maybe they were like, well, I don't know if I have enough, or maybe they got some advice they weren't comfortable with and they want a second or third opinion. What do they do, Jimmy?
I encourage anyone listening, obviously, if you're listening to podcasts like this, you're kind of in that stage where you're either in retirement or just a few years from retirement, and you're concerned. You're trying to educate yourself about different topics in retirement. I encourage you to just call our office and schedule a complimentary consultation. Even if you have a plan already or you're working with an advisor, you can never have too many people looking at your plan, because you can always learn a little bit something from each person that you meet with, and you could get some advice that could literally change your retirement. So if any of the listeners want to reach out, you can call our office at 702-805-7000, and you can schedule an appointment, or you can go to our website and schedule there as well. But I definitely encourage everyone to do that, because there's no obligation. There's no downside to it. We just want to provide some education, and if there's anything you want us to help with, we're happy to talk about that.
I think you've made it abundantly clear here in just these few minutes, Jimmy, that maybe it's possible to do it yourself on this. All right. But really, you need someone that looks at these kind of things all the time, that has years and years of experience like Jimmy Lynn and the Right Path to Retirement team do, to give your portfolio a look, to give it an analysis, because there may be something that you're not considering at all, whether it's a type of expense or whether it's another stream of income.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doug, and all of our seminars, I always end with a simple statement: is you only have one retirement in this life, right? So make sure that you maximize it. And the best way to do that is just get another set of eyes to look at your plan.
Yeah, for sure. And some people overshoot on that. I mean, part of your story, Jimmy, part of what got you into this field, your dad had to get a part-time job in his mid-60s because even though he was very successful, there was something that wasn't accounted for. So we don't, unless you want to keep working, folks, you don't want to be surprised and have to end up doing that.
Right. Everyone that's listening, give us a call and we'll get you safely into those go-go years and then have you go through that retirement smile.
Do that at rightpathtoretirement.com. And be sure to hit up Apple and Spotify for past episodes of this and listen right on rightpathtoretirement.com. Now, you're hearing this. Okay, you've benefited from it. You've made it to the end of this episode, okay? But if you know someone that you think needs to hear it, flip that link over to them and make sure to subscribe and have them subscribe if they're interested too, to know when the next episodes come out. In fact, our next episode is going to be about one of these retirement paths, and that is Social Security. So, Jimmy, thank you so much for spending your time with us here. Hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, and just so glad that you're able to lend that time and enlighten us here on something that could certainly trick a lot of people if they're not careful.
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for listening here to Right Path to Retirement. Also, thanks to our producer, Daniel Salerson, for editing and putting this out into cyberspace. We will have another episode coming your way very shortly, y'all. Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you for listening.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Right Path Wealth Management. Right Path Wealth Management is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Right Path Wealth Management are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Right Path Wealth Management is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained by sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Right Path Wealth Management.